All right, this is Anwar Salandi of Anwar's Reflections. Today we're sitting down with Council at-Large candidate Christine Donahue. Welcome to the show, Ms. Donahue.
Thank you, Anwar.
All right, can you tell our audience a little bit more about who you are and why you're running for office?
Well, I'm Christine Donahue. I live here in the city. I'm over in the South Ward, and this is the second time I've run for council. I ran 4 years ago, and I wasn't able to get a council seat, but I came very close, and so since then I've been very active in the city, and I'd like to continue. I'd like to serve the community as a council person.
Okay. And I just want to touch on something in the past. In the past interview, you've said that the role of being an at-large council person is to promote fair and balanced policies to support economic development here in the city. What specific ideas or proposals, if any, do you have to spur economic development here in the city?
Well, Anwar, I think you realize that council people usually are the impetus for most of the ordinances that we see come up into council, and the reason being is there's concerns on behalf of the business owners, the business community, or the residents, and as a result an ordinance is passed. I think it's very important that when an ordinance is passed that it's reviewed for the effects that it has on the entire city, on each ward, not just the individual, because of course there is always some cost benefit when an ordinance is passed, and I think that's very important that it be a positive effect for the entire city.
Okay. Okay. And also, along with this, you've mentioned some different services or departments within City Hall, like the Division of Economic Development and the Bureau of Streets, and how they need reform and need to be held accountable. Your idea was to have them provide quarterly reports of their actions. Do you still think that's a good idea, and do you think more and more of the all the city services need to do that, or all the departments need to do that, or?
I think all the departments need to do that, and I'm a big proponent of a form of budgeting called zero-based budgeting, and in that you take a look at the cost for service delivery, and I think you can do that on a per head basis in the city. We're about 85,000 people, so it is possible to know how much does it cost us to pick up trash per household, and would it be more effective to have more or less pickups in certain areas. I don't see that type of strategic analysis going on in the city right now. I don't really think that the council delves into things at that level, but I think it's really important, especially in this new administration, to take on those type of challenges.
And you would want to have a strategic focus this time. If you were elected, you would want to strategically pinpoint these things.
Yes, and I have to say over the past 4 years, the one thing that I haven't seen is I haven't seen the council hold any of the departments, including the Board of Education, responsible for anything that has gone on. It's rare that you see the directors called into council. It's rare that you see reporting from the directors, unless there's a big problem. But there isn't regular reporting. And the council, of course, well, any citizen can go and sit in on a ComStat meeting, on the Board of Education meetings, but I don't think that the council has been proactive in addressing issues that the citizens are facing. And I think it's very important that whoever takes on the role of council person is interested and is watching benchmarks.
Okay. Okay, and along with this, there's also been some budget issues that have come up. How do you propose to help balance the budget as a council person, recognizing that doing so will involve making some pretty difficult decisions that may even involve, cutting services or maybe even raising taxes to increase revenue?
Well, I think first of all we have to focus on improving the services that we do deliver, and those are the most basic, of course, garbage removal from the city, snow plowing, repairing of the streets. And so I think we have to have a primary focus, what's important to Trentonians, and I think it's clear that that is the most important. And then I think we should look at secondary services and see which one of them are being utilized and by how many people, and make some choices based on how people feel about the services that they're receiving.
Okay, okay. And regarding the issue of crime and public safety, candidate Duncan Harrison, one of your opponents, has advocated creating an auxiliary police force. What plan do you have to stem the tide of violence here in the city of Trenton?
So it's interesting because we had an auxiliary police force, and we did have a group of people that were trained, and that was the decision of the police department to not utilize that force. Part of the reason was liability at the time, but again, it's a directive. So auxiliary police forces, community policing, is a style of policing, and in that directive comes from the director. Of course, now we have the civilian director. I think that we need to go to a stop and challenge form of policing. It's a more proactive form of policing. And I think that we need to focus on areas where there's drug activity, because the drug activity tends to bring additional types of crime. I'd like to see us go from a civilian police director to a police chief as well. If we save the $300,000 salary that we currently give the civilian police director, we could afford to hire a few more police officers. My hope is that we'll be able to hire an additional 40 police officers to put the TAC unit back together, and to save money in ways, creative ways, such as when alarms go off repeatedly in the city, we would charge landlords or business owners for the call to the police to check out the business. That's a common practice in most municipalities in New Jersey now.
Now, when you mentioned the bringing on additional police officers in light of the budget problems, how would you propose doing that? Like, what would be your plan to get the funds or the resources to hire some more police officers?
There are federal funds available to hire additional police officers, and as we know, with the fire department, we had the SAFER grant, and there were opportunities under the Mack administration to receive additional funds. Unfortunately, the grants weren't written on time, and the due dates passed, and that's one of the reasons why we lost some of the police officers earlier. I believe that was in 2012. So I'd like to see those police officers reinstated through grant funding, and I think it would be a good investment on part of the city to add an additional grant officer that's responsible for the policing grants. Thank you.